I'm standing in the middle of what was supposed to be Paradise Beach Resort, staring at an empty dirt lot with a few wooden posts sticking out of the ground, and I'm finally understanding that I've been comprehensively destroyed by someone I trusted completely. For 9 months, I've been investing in this resort project, sending money for land purchase, building materials, contractor payments, permits, equipment, legal fees. My girlfriend Marielle has been showing me photos of construction progress, contractor invoices, permit applications, architectural plans. She's been telling me we're building something amazing together, a boutique beach resort that will provide income for both of us and create jobs for the local community. I've invested $400,000 my entire life, savings from selling my Portland home and cashing out my construction business shares. Marielle has been managing the project while I handled the financing, supposedly coordinating with contractors, government officials, suppliers. She's shown me dozens of documents proving the resort was being built exactly as planned. Now I'm standing on this empty lot on the outskirts of Cebu, and there's nothing here except dirt, weeds, and a few wooden stakes marking where buildings were supposedly under construction. No foundation has been poured, no materials are stored anywhere, no workers have ever been here. The construction progress photos Marielle showed me were taken at completely different locations. I pull out my phone and try calling Marielle for the 20th time this morning. Her number goes straight to a message saying it's been disconnected. I check Facebook. Her account has been deleted. I try messaging on Viber and WhatsApp. Both show she's no longer active. Every method of contacting her has been systematically eliminated. I drive to the real estate office where Marielle supposedly worked. The receptionist tells me no one by that name has ever been employed there. I show her Marielle's photo, and she looks at me with sympathy. "Sir, I am very sorry, but many foreign men are scammed this way. Women claim to work here and use our office name for credibility, but they are not real employees. This happens very often." I pull out the land title documents Marielle gave me, official-looking papers with government seals and stamps showing I own this property through our partnership company. I take them to a land title office and ask them to verify the documents. The clerk examines them for about 30 seconds before telling me what I'm terrified to hear. "Sir, these documents are forgeries. This land is not registered to the name on these papers. Someone has created fake title documents." The crushing reality settles over me like a physical weight. Marielle Santos, the 33-year-old real estate agent who I believed was my business partner and girlfriend, has systematically stolen $400,000 from me over 9 months using an elaborate fake resort investment scheme. And now she's disappeared completely, leaving behind forged documents, fake photos, and an empty lot where my retirement savings used to be. My name is Stephen Caldwell. I'm 59 years old, and I just lost everything my entire life. Savings, my retirement security, my dream of building something meaningful in the Philippines, to a professional scammer who understood exactly how to manipulate a confident American businessman's pride and ambition. Most victims would slink away in shame at this point, maybe file a useless police report before flying home defeated. But I'm not going to do that. Over the next several months, I'm going to investigate Marielle's operation, expose her publicly, and ultimately help authorities understand the scope of her scam network. I won't recover my money, but I'll make damn sure she can't easily do this to someone else. This is the story of how I lost $400,000 building a resort that never existed, and how I fought back by exposing the scammers who destroyed me. If you've been enjoying the stories I create, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Your support is crucial for the growth of this channel and helps me dedicate time to making these videos despite my commitment to a full-time job. Thank you for being here. I need to explain who I was before Marielle, because understanding my background helps explain both why I fell for this scam and why I was confident enough to invest my entire life savings in a Philippines resort project. I was born in Portland, Oregon in 1965, grew up in a working-class neighborhood where men worked with their hands and took pride in building things. My father was a carpenter, and I followed him into construction, starting as a laborer at 18 and learning the trades from the ground up. I was good at construction work. I understood how buildings went together. I could read blueprints. I had a knack for coordinating the complicated logistics of construction projects. By my late 20s, I'd moved into project management, overseeing residential and commercial construction for a mid-sized Portland firm. In 1998, at age 33, I became a partner in a construction company called Northwest Builders. We specialized in custom homes and small commercial projects, quality construction for clients who wanted professional work without the premium prices of the largest firms. Over 25 years, Northwest Builders completed hundreds of projects and built a solid reputation in the Portland market. I married my wife Linda when I was 31. We had one son, Michael, born in 1997. The marriage was solid for about 15 years. We were good partners, managing household and raising a kid, even if we weren't particularly passionate. But by our late 40s, the marriage had become hollow. We divorced amicably in 2018 after 22 years together, splitting assets fairly and maintaining a civil relationship for Michael's sake. After the divorce, I focused entirely on work and building my share value in Northwest Builders. I dated occasionally, but never seriously. I was fine being single, more interested in my business than in trying to rebuild a romantic life. By 2022, at age 57, I was tired. Construction project management is demanding constant stress, tight deadlines, dealing with contractors and clients and regulators. I'd been doing it for nearly 40 years, and I was ready to retire while I still had health and energy to enjoy life. Two of my partners in Northwest Builders were also approaching retirement, so we decided to sell the company. In early 2023, we found a buyer, a larger regional construction firm that wanted our client base and reputation. The sale netted me approximately $280,000 for my partnership share. I also sold my Portland house, which had appreciated significantly over the years I'd owned it. After paying off the mortgage and splitting the equity with Linda per our divorce agreement, I walked away with another $120,000. Combined with savings and retirement accounts, I had approximately $400,000, enough to retire comfortably if I was careful about where I lived and how I spent. But retire to what? Portland was expensive and getting worse. I'd lived there my whole life and wanted something different for my retirement years. I started researching retirement destinations abroad, places where cost of living was low, weather was warm, and $400,000 would last much longer than in America. The Philippines appeared repeatedly in my research. Large English-speaking population, very low cost of living, warm weather, year-round, friendly people, and a culture that reportedly welcomed foreign retirees. I joined online forums and Facebook groups for American expatriates in the Philippines, reading about their experiences and what daily life was like. What particularly appealed to me about the Philippines was the business opportunities. Unlike Thailand, which severely restricted foreign business ownership, the Philippines allowed foreigners to be minority partners in Philippine corporations. Several expatriates posted about starting small businesses, restaurants, guest houses, dive shops, tourism operations. They described meaningful retirement activities beyond just sitting on beaches drinking beer. I liked that concept. I'd spent 40 years in construction and project management. I knew how to build things, manage budgets, coordinate contractors. Starting a small resort or guest house seemed like a perfect retirement project, something meaningful to work on while generating income and providing value to the community. In August 2023, I flew to the Philippines for a month-long exploratory visit, staying primarily in Cebu City. I loved it immediately: the warm weather, the friendly people, the affordable lifestyle, the energy and optimism. I met other American retirees who seemed genuinely happy with their decisions to move there. By the end of my visit, I'd decided to move to the Philippines permanently. I returned to Portland, finalized the sale of my house, consolidated my investments into accessible accounts, and in November 2023, moved to Cebu with $400,000 and plans to find a small business opportunity. I was 58 years old, confident in my business experience, and absolutely convinced I was too smart to be scammed. I'd spent decades managing construction projects worth millions, negotiating with contractors, reviewing legal documents, identifying problems before they became disasters. I believed my professional expertise would protect me from the obvious frauds that caught naive retirees. What I didn't know was that within 2 weeks of arriving in Cebu, I would meet Marielle Santos, who would identify me as an ideal target, newly arrived American with substantial cash, construction background, perfect for a fake resort investment, confident enough to ignore warnings, and proud enough to believe his expertise made him immune to scams. Marielle would spend 9 months systematically extracting every dollar I had using an elaborately constructed fake resort project that appealed perfectly to my desire to build something meaningful. And my confidence in my own judgment would make me the perfect victim, too proud to listen to warnings, too experienced to believe I could be fooled, too invested in my vision to recognize obvious fraud until it was far too late. I'd been in Cebu for about 2 weeks, staying in a modest apartment while I explored different neighborhoods and looked for business opportunities. I spent my days visiting various establishments, small hotels, guest houses, restaurants, dive shops, trying to understand what worked and what didn't in the Philippines tourism industry. In late November 2023, I was having coffee at a beachfront cafe in Mactan when a Filipina woman at the next table asked if I could help her with her laptop. She was having trouble connecting to the cafe's Wi-Fi and saw I was working on my computer successfully. "Excuse me, sir. I am sorry to bother you," she said in excellent English. "I am having difficulty with the Wi-Fi connection. Could you possibly help me? I have an important client meeting online in 10 minutes. I helped her troubleshoot the connection. It was a simple DNS issue that took about 2 minutes to fix. She was grateful and professional, introducing herself as Marielle Santos, a real estate agent specializing in properties for foreign buyers and investors. "Thank you so much," she said. "You just saved me from a very embarrassing situation with my client. Please, let me buy your coffee as appreciation." Marielle was attractive, early 30s. I guessed professionally dressed, confident manner, intelligent conversation. We talked for about an hour, and I was impressed by her knowledge of Philippines business regulations, property law, and the expatriate market. "I work primarily with foreign investors and retirees," Marielle explained, helping them navigate Philippines property law, finding legitimate investment opportunities, connecting them with reliable contractors and lawyers. Many foreigners get scammed because they don't understand local regulations, or they work with dishonest people. I try to help them avoid those problems. I told her about my construction background and my interest in finding a small business opportunity, maybe a guest house or small resort where I could use my project management experience. Marielle's eyes lit up. "That is exactly the kind of investment many foreigners look for, and with your construction experience, you would have a huge advantage. Most foreign investors have no idea how to manage building projects here, so they get overcharged by contractors or end up with poor quality work. But you would know what you are doing." She gave me her business card, official looking, with a real estate company logo and office address, and suggested we meet again to discuss potential opportunities. I was intrigued. Marielle seemed professional and knowledgeable, and having a local expert who understood Philippines business regulations could be invaluable. Over the next 2 weeks, Marielle and I met several times. She showed me properties that were for sale, explained Philippines corporation law that required Filipino majority ownership but allowed foreigners to be minority shareholders, introduced me to other expats who'd successfully started businesses with her help. Everything she said and showed me seemed legitimate and professional. Our relationship gradually shifted from purely professional to personal. Marielle would suggest meeting for dinner instead of just coffee. She'd ask about my personal life, my divorce, my son, what I was hoping to find in retirement. She was easy to talk to, sympathetic about the loneliness of starting over in a new country, and she made me feel valued and understood. By mid-December, about a month after we'd met, Marielle and I were in a romantic relationship. It happened naturally. One evening after dinner, we kissed, and the relationship transitioned from professional consultation to genuine partnership. I was thrilled. Marielle was attractive, intelligent, professionally successful, and she seemed to genuinely care about me, rather than just seeing me as a client or a foreign man with money. In late December, Marielle told me about an opportunity that seemed perfect for what I was looking for. A beachfront property on the outskirts of Cebu was available for purchase, about 1,200 square meters with ocean access, perfect for a small boutique resort. The owner was motivated to sell quickly because of financial problems and was offering the property for only 3 million pesos, about $54,000, which was remarkably cheap for beachfront land. "This is the kind of opportunity that does not come often," Marielle explained. "Beachfront property this close to Cebu City normally sells for double or triple this price, but the owner needs money urgently and is willing to sell fast to someone who can pay cash. If you act quickly, you could buy this land and build exactly the kind of small resort you have been talking about." Marielle showed me the property, a beautiful stretch of beach with palm trees, crystal clear water, and stunning views. She showed me title documents that appeared official, with government stamps and the owner's name. She showed me zoning documentation, confirming the land could be used for tourism development. Everything looked legitimate, but I knew Philippines law prevented foreigners from owning land directly. Marielle explained the standard workaround that many expats used, creating a Philippines corporation where I would be the minority shareholder, 40%, and Marielle would be the majority shareholder, 60%, but I would control the corporation through special voting rights and management agreements. This is standard structure for foreign investors, Marielle assured me. The corporation owns the land, and while my name has to appear as majority owner for legal compliance, you control the company and the property. I have done this arrangement with several other foreign investors, and it works perfectly as long as you have proper contracts prepared by a good lawyer. She introduced me to a lawyer named Addie, Ricardo Mendoza, who she said specialized in foreign investment structures. Addie, Mendoza reviewed everything and confirmed that the corporate structure Marielle described was legal and commonly used. He prepared contracts supposedly giving me operational control and first rights to any sale or dissolution of the corporation. Looking back, I can see all the warning signs I ignored. I'd known Marielle for only 6 weeks. Why was I trusting her to be the majority owner of a property I was funding? The price was suspiciously low for beachfront property near Cebu City. Why wasn't I questioning whether the deal was too good to be true? The lawyer was Marielle's referral rather than someone I'd found independently. Why wasn't I getting independent legal advice? But I wanted to believe this was a legitimate opportunity. Marielle had been consistently professional and helpful. The property was beautiful. The legal structure seemed properly documented. And most importantly, my 40 years of construction experience made me confident I could manage a resort project successfully. I just needed to acquire the land and start building. In early January 2024, I transferred 3 million pesos, approximately $54,000 for the land purchase. Marielle handled all the paperwork, registering the corporation, transferring the title, obtaining tax identification numbers. She gave me copies of all documents, corporate registration showing me as 40% owner, land title in the corporation's name, tax records, everything appearing official and legitimate. I had just made the first payment toward a $400,000 scam that would destroy my financial security over the next 9 months. But standing on that beautiful beachfront property in January 2024, I believed I'd just purchased land for the retirement project that would define my remaining years. After purchasing the land in January, Marielle and I began planning the resort development. I was in my element. This was exactly the kind of project I'd managed dozens of times in my construction career. I sketched preliminary designs for a small boutique resort, 8 guest bungalows, a main building with reception and restaurant, basic amenities, all designed to blend with the beachfront environment. Marielle was enthusiastic and supportive, offering insights about what Filipino and international tourists wanted, connecting me with local architects and contractors, handling permit applications with government offices. She seemed genuinely excited about building this resort together. In late January, Marielle told me we needed to move quickly on the next phase, purchasing additional adjacent land to expand the resort footprint. The neighbor was willing to sell 1,000 square meters for 2.4 million pesos, about $43,000. This would give us enough space for the full 8 bungalow design, plus parking and landscaping. The price seemed reasonable for the location, and expanding now was smarter than trying to purchase more land later after we'd already started construction. I transferred the money, and Marielle handled the legal process of adding this parcel to our corporate holdings. What I didn't know was that neither parcel of land existed in the way Marielle had represented. The original property wasn't available for sale at the price she'd claimed. She'd shown me land that belonged to someone who had no intention of selling. The adjacent parcel was complete fiction. All the title documents, corporate registrations, and legal paperwork were sophisticated forgeries created by her network. By early February, I'd invested approximately $97,000 in land that I didn't actually own through a corporation that didn't actually exist. But I believed I owned the property, and I was ready to start construction. Marielle arranged meetings with contractors who submitted bids for the development work. I reviewed their proposals using all my construction expertise, negotiating prices, clarifying specifications, identifying potential problems before they could become expensive mistakes. The winning contractor was a company called Cebu Quality Builders, which submitted a proposal of 4 million pesos, about $72,000, for the foundation work, structural framing, and roofing on all buildings. The price seemed reasonable for the scope of work, and the contractor's references checked out when I contacted them. I didn't know that Cebu Quality Builders was part of Marielle's scam network, that the references were fake, and that none of the proposed work would ever be performed. I signed the contract in March 2024 and transferred the first payment, 2 million pesos, as a 50% deposit. Throughout March and April, Marielle sent me regular updates about construction progress. She'd send photos showing workers clearing the land, surveyors marking foundation locations, materials being delivered to the site. She'd forward contractor invoices showing payments for labor and supplies. She'd share permit approvals from municipal offices authorizing the construction work. I was busy during these months setting up other aspects of my life in Cebu, finding a permanent apartment to rent, getting my Philippines retirement visa processed, opening local bank accounts. I trusted Marielle to manage the construction details, since that was supposedly her area of expertise as a real estate consultant working with foreign investors. I should have been visiting the construction site regularly, but Marielle always had plausible reasons why visiting wasn't practical yet. The site was difficult to access during heavy equipment work. The contractors preferred not to have clients underfoot during early construction phases. We'd do a proper site visit once the foundations were poured and the framing was up. I accepted these explanations because I'd managed enough construction projects to know that owners visiting too frequently could slow work down. And I trusted Marielle to represent my interests. We were partners in this project, romantically involved, building something together for our shared future. In May, Marielle told me we needed additional funds for several urgent issues. The foundation work had encountered unexpected rock formations requiring special excavation equipment, an extra 800,000 pesos. Building permits had cost more than anticipated because of new environmental requirements, 600,000 pesos. Higher grade lumber was necessary because termite problems with the originally specified wood, 700,000 pesos. Each request came with supporting documentation, contractor change orders, government invoices, material receipts. Each seemed like the kind of unexpected cost that always occurs in construction projects. And each was small enough that I didn't panic about budget overruns. These things happened in construction. I transferred the money, approximately $39,000 total, believing I was covering legitimate cost overruns that any construction project experiences. By June 2024, I'd invested about $208,000 in the resort project. Marielle assured me we were on track to complete construction by August and open for business by September. She showed me marketing materials she'd created, booking inquiries she'd received, partnership discussions with tour operators. Everything seemed to be proceeding toward a successful resort opening. In late June, Marielle told me we needed to purchase equipment and furnishings for the resort: beds, linens, kitchen equipment, furniture, everything necessary to make the bungalows functional and attractive. She'd found suppliers who could provide everything at wholesale prices if we ordered now rather than waiting. The total cost was 3.2 million pesos, about $57,000. I was getting anxious about how much money I'd spent, over $200,000 already, but equipping the resort was a necessary step toward opening. I transferred the money, and Marielle showed me receipts from suppliers supposedly delivering furniture, appliances, linens, kitchen equipment to a storage facility near the resort site. Throughout July, the requests continued. We needed to hire and train staff before opening, 1,200,000 pesos for salaries and training costs. Marketing and advertising required professional help, 800,000 pesos for promotional materials and online advertising campaigns. Final inspections and licensing required additional government fees, 600,000 pesos. Each request came with urgent justifications and official-looking documentation. Each felt like the final push toward opening the resort and starting to generate revenue, and each further depleted my savings while I remained convinced we were almost finished with the investment phase and about to transition to the operation phase. By early August 2024, I'd transferred approximately $370,000 to various accounts Marielle controlled for land purchase, construction, equipment, permits, fees, everything necessary to build and open Paradise Beach Resort. I had about $30,000 remaining from my original $400,000, but that was okay because we were nearly finished with construction and about to start generating income from the resort operations. My investment would start paying returns once we opened for business. In mid-August, Marielle told me the resort was complete and ready for my inspection. "I want you to see everything we have built together," she said excitedly. "It is more beautiful than I imagined. You are going to be so proud of what we have accomplished." On August 17th, 2024, I drove to the location where Paradise Beach Resort was supposedly completed and ready to open for business. That's when I discovered the empty lot, the fake construction photos, the forged documents, and the devastating truth that Marielle had stolen $370,000 from me over 9 months using an elaborate resort investment scam. After discovering the empty lot, I spent several days in shock, trying to understand what had happened and figure out what to do next. I went to the police and filed a report, bringing all my documentation, contracts, receipts, transfer records, everything. The police officer taking my report was sympathetic but not encouraging. "Sir, this type of scam is common with foreign investors. You gave money voluntarily to your girlfriend for a business project. Proving that this was fraud rather than a business that failed will be very difficult. We will investigate, but recovering your money will be nearly impossible." I hired a different lawyer, one I found independently, rather than through Marielle's referral, to review all my documents and advise on legal options. His assessment was devastating. "Mr. Caldwell, I regret to inform you that most of these documents are forgeries," the lawyer explained. "The corporate registration documents show a company that does not exist in government records. The land titles are fake. The serial numbers do not match legitimate government-issued titles. The contractor agreements are with companies that are not registered businesses. Even the receipts and invoices are fabricated." He paused, clearly uncomfortable with what he needed to say next. "I also must tell you that the lawyer who prepared your contracts, attorney Ricardo Mendoza, his notary certification on these documents may be problematic. Would you mind if I verify his credentials and notary authority?" 2 days later, my lawyer called me with information that made my blood run cold. "Mr. Caldwell, I have discovered something very disturbing about attorney Mendoza. He is married to a woman named Marielle Santos Mendoza. They are running this scam together. She finds foreign investors. He provides legal-looking documents that appear legitimate. They share the stolen money. Marielle wasn't just a scammer. She was married to the lawyer I'd trusted to protect my interests. Every legal opinion he'd given me about the corporate structure being safe, every contract he'd reviewed to ensure I was protected, every document he'd notarized, supposedly confirming ownership, all had been part of the scam from the beginning." My lawyer investigated further and found something even more disturbing. "Mr. Caldwell, there are records of complaints filed against both Marielle Santos Mendoza and Ricardo Mendoza from other foreign nationals. At least 4 other investors have reported being scammed by them using similar fake resort and property investment schemes. The combined losses exceed 40 million pesos, about $700,000. I wasn't the first victim. I was just the latest in a series of foreign investors who'd been systematically destroyed by this couple's operation. They'd refined their scam over multiple victims, learning what worked, what documentation looked most convincing, what explanations satisfied skeptical investors. The problem," my lawyer continued, "is that proving criminal fraud is difficult when victims voluntarily gave money to their romantic partners or business partners. The Mendozas will claim these were legitimate business relationships that failed, not fraudulent schemes, and they have enough forged documentation to make prosecution very difficult. The crushing reality was that, even though I'd been comprehensively scammed, getting justice would be almost impossible. The police investigation would move slowly, if it moved at all. The Mendozas would probably disappear or claim the investments were legitimate business ventures that didn't work out, and my money was already dispersed through networks of accounts where it couldn't be traced or recovered. I had $30,000 left from my $400,000 in savings. I was 59 years old with no retirement security, no property, no investments. Just the knowledge that I'd been systematically robbed by professionals who understood exactly how to manipulate confident American businessmen. Most victims would give up at this point, return to America defeated, try to rebuild something from the ruins. But I was angry in ways I hadn't been angry in my entire life. Marielle and Ricardo Mendoza had stolen everything I'd worked 40 years to save. They'd destroyed my retirement security, and they were apparently doing this to multiple foreign investors without facing any real consequences. I decided I wasn't going to let them continue operating without opposition. If I couldn't recover my money through legal channels, I'd use public exposure to make their lives difficult and warn other potential victims. With my lawyer's help, I compiled a comprehensive dossier on the Mendoza scam operation, all my documentation, records of other victims, evidence of the forged documents, patterns in their tactics. Then I started my public exposure campaign. I wrote detailed posts in every expatriate Facebook group and forum I could find, explaining exactly what had happened and how the scam worked. I included photos of Marielle and Ricardo, copies of the fake documents, warnings about their tactics. I named the fake real estate company Marielle claimed to work for, the fake contractor companies they used, the patterns other victims should watch for. The response was immediate and substantial. Within days, my posts had been shared hundreds of times. Other victims came forward with similar stories: a British man who'd lost $200,000 to a fake guest house investment, an Australian who'd lost $150,000 to a fake restaurant venture, a German who'd lost $300,000 on a fake dive resort. Every victim had a similar story: met Marielle through apparently coincidental contact, developed romantic relationship, got convinced to invest in fake business, worked with attorney Mendoza for legal documents, lost everything when the business turned out to be fiction. I also contacted a local journalist who covered fraud and scams in the Philippines. She was immediately interested in the story, especially when I showed her evidence of multiple victims and the connection between Marielle and attorney Mendoza. She wrote an article for a Cebu newspaper exposing the scam operation, featuring interviews with several victims and copies of the forged documents. The article went viral in the local Philippines community. Within a week, it had been picked up by national news websites and English-language Philippines publications. Marielle and Ricardo's faces and names were suddenly everywhere, associated with headlines about romance investment fraud and fake resort scams. The public exposure accomplished several important things. First, it warned potential future victims to avoid Marielle and Ricardo. Second, it created social pressure on authorities to actually investigate rather than dismissing this as relationship disputes. Third, it made it much harder for the Mendozas to continue operating in Cebu, where their faces and tactics were now widely known. About 3 weeks after the newspaper article was published, I received information from my lawyer that the Mendozas had fled Cebu. They'd closed their office, abandoned their apartment, and reportedly moved to Mindanao, where they could start over under different business names. They're not stupid people, my lawyer explained. When their operation becomes too well known in one location, they move to a different island and reinvent themselves. They will probably wait 6 months or a year, then start running similar scams in a new city with new identities. The police investigation was moving slowly, but finally moving. With evidence of multiple victims and clear patterns of fraud, prosecutors were building a criminal case. My lawyer was optimistic about eventually getting arrest warrants issued, though he warned that arrests and prosecution could take months or years, given how slowly the Philippines justice system moved. I'd succeeded in exposing the scam and forcing the Mendozas to flee, but I hadn't recovered any money. The $370,000 they'd stolen was dispersed through accounts I couldn't trace, probably already moved offshore or converted to assets I couldn't identify. I was never going to get my retirement savings back. I had to face the practical reality of my situation. I had $30,000 remaining. I couldn't afford to stay in Cebu maintaining an apartment on my drastically reduced resources. I needed to return to America and figure out how to rebuild some kind of life at 59 with a fraction of the retirement security I'd planned. But before leaving, I wanted to create something that would continue warning potential victims even after I was gone. I started a YouTube channel called Philippines Investment Scams, where I detailed my experience and the experiences of other victims I'd interviewed. The channel grew quickly. Apparently there was substantial demand for honest information about scam operations targeting foreign retirees in Southeast Asia. I posted videos explaining common fraud patterns, showing examples of forged documents, interviewing other victims, and providing practical advice about protecting yourself when investing in the Philippines. A local church in Cebu helped me fly back to Portland in October 2024, loaning me money for the flight that I promised to repay when I was financially stable. When I landed in Portland, I'd been in the Philippines for 11 months. I'd arrived with $400,000. I was returning with nothing except hard-learned lessons about trust, due diligence, and the dangers of believing your expertise makes you immune to scams. I'm 59 years old now, back in Portland, living in a cheap studio apartment and working part-time construction jobs when I can find them. I have no savings, no retirement security, and a financial future that looks bleak compared to the comfortable retirement I'd been planning before I met Marielle. But I found something I didn't expect: purpose and meaning through warning others and documenting scam operations. My YouTube channel, Philippines Investment Scams, has grown to over 15,000 subscribers. I post weekly videos about fraud patterns, interview victims, analyze scam tactics, and provide practical advice about protecting yourself when investing abroad. The channel doesn't generate significant income yet, but it's become genuinely meaningful work. I receive messages constantly from people who tell me my videos prevented them from falling for similar scams, who recognized patterns in their own situations after watching my content, who avoided losing money because they understood the warning signs. One man wrote to tell me he'd been in discussions with a Filipina woman about investing in a beach resort project, the exact same scam pattern I'd experienced. After watching my videos, he recognized all the red flags and ended the relationship before sending any money. "You saved me from losing everything," he wrote. "Thank you for having the courage to share your story publicly." Another viewer contacted me after recognizing Marielle and Ricardo in one of my videos. They'd approached him in Davao City, using different names but the same tactics. He reported them to local police, who connected their current activities to the outstanding arrest warrants from Cebu. The police arrested them, and they're currently awaiting trial on fraud charges. I'll probably never recover the $370,000 the Mendozas stole from me. But knowing that my public exposure and advocacy work has prevented others from experiencing similar devastation gives me satisfaction that money couldn't provide. The question people ask most often is what I'd do differently if I could go back. The answer is extensive. I'd never invest significant money in a business project managed by someone I'd only known for a few weeks. I'd get independent legal advice from lawyers I found myself, rather than accepting referrals from people who benefit from the investment. I'd visit construction sites regularly rather than trusting photos and updates. I'd verify all documentation directly with government offices, rather than accepting official-looking papers at face value. Most importantly, I'd recognize that 40 years of construction experience in America didn't make me qualified to navigate business investments in the Philippines without extensive due diligence and independent verification. My confidence in my own expertise made me vulnerable to scammers who understood exactly how to exploit that pride. I thought I was building a dream resort, I tell viewers in my videos. Turns out, I was building their retirement with my life savings. Every dollar I sent, every document I signed, every warning sign I ignored, all contributed to the most expensive mistake of my life. The lesson I emphasize most in my content is that scammers don't target stupid people. They target confident people who believe their intelligence or experience makes them immune to manipulation. Marielle and Ricardo specifically sought investors with construction or business backgrounds because those investors would be confident about managing resort projects and would be less likely to question technical details. My construction expertise didn't protect me. It made me an ideal target because I was confident enough to invest large amounts quickly without extensive verification. The very skills I thought would prevent me from being scammed actually made the scam more effective. I'm working part-time construction in Portland now, gradually paying off debts and trying to rebuild some minimal retirement security. I'll probably never have the comfortable retirement I'd planned, but I'm creating something valuable through my advocacy work, preventing others from experiencing the devastation I experienced. The YouTube channel has become my unpaid full-time job alongside my part-time construction work. I spend hours researching scam operations, interviewing victims, analyzing fraud patterns, creating content that actually helps people. It's meaningful work in ways that managing construction projects never was. Several victims I've interviewed have asked me whether I regret moving to the Philippines or whether I'd warn others to avoid it entirely. My answer is always the same. The Philippines is a beautiful country with genuine opportunities, but foreign investors need extraordinary caution and extensive due diligence before trusting anyone with significant money. Don't let my disaster story convince you to never invest in Southeast Asia, I tell viewers. But let it convince you to verify everything independently. Get multiple legal opinions from lawyers you find yourself. Visit projects regularly. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, and never invest money you can't afford to lose. The Mendozas are currently in jail, awaiting trial. My lawyer expects they'll be convicted given the evidence of multiple victims and clear fraud patterns. They'll probably serve some prison time, though Philippines penalties for fraud are typically light compared to American standards. But prison time doesn't return my $370,000. It doesn't restore my retirement security or give me back the comfortable final decades I'd worked 40 years to achieve. It just provides some minimal justice and prevents them from scamming more victims while they're incarcerated. I receive messages occasionally from other victims of the Mendoza's people who lost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to the same scam operation. We've formed an informal support network, helping each other process the financial and psychological damage while working together to warn others. At 59, I'm starting over with nothing, living in a studio apartment, working part-time construction, running a YouTube channel that provides meaning but not income. It's not the retirement I imagined when I sold my Portland home and moved to the Philippines with $400,000 and dreams of building a beach resort. But I've learned something valuable from this disaster. Meaning and purpose don't require financial security. The work I'm doing warning others, exposing scam operations, and helping victims process their experiences is genuinely important, even though it doesn't pay well. I'm building something real now, not a fake resort, but actual value through education and advocacy. $400,000 lost to a resort that never existed. That's my story. And I share it publicly because maybe, just maybe, my expensive education can prevent someone else from experiencing the same devastating destruction. If this story has made you more cautious about investment opportunities abroad, please subscribe to this channel. Stephen Caldwell's experience shows how professional scam operations target confident, experienced investors who believe their expertise protects them from fraud. His story represents hundreds of foreign retirees who lose their life savings to fake business investments. Share this with anyone considering investing in property or businesses in Southeast Asia. And remember, verify everything independently, get multiple legal opinions from lawyers you find yourself, visit projects regularly, and never invest money you can't afford to lose. Your expertise in one country doesn't translate to expertise in foreign business environments. Thank you for watching, and protect yourself and your savings.